And welcome back to the show, everybody. My name is Shane, and I'm here with Mark.
Hey.
And we are the Fantasy Football Pros. So today we are talking about 6 rookie wide receivers that we think that you should know about before the draft. Not necessarily our top 6 guys, but more of probably like the top 3 and then 3 other guys that you should definitely know of.
Hey, Shane, real quick. Can we do some housekeeping here?
Sure, go ahead.
Did you know, and I do know you know, that we are international now?
Yes. So something happened last week, and it kind of threw us off a little bit. So we released our video that was on rookie running backs, and out of nowhere, we had a surplus of downloads, from all over the world. There was one in Africa and Brazil and Mexico, the Netherlands.
A
But
lot
we
from
had,
Ireland.
yeah, a lot from Ireland. So we're just really curious. Do you guys pay attention to American football, the NFL, and you like fantasy football? Or are you Americans that moved to Ireland and you want to keep up on your fantasy football? Or did you guys think it was your football, soccer, and it was an accident?
Well, it's funny that it happened all in one day, and then all of a sudden, another day we had a couple more downloads from Ireland. And I hope they enjoyed what they heard. I hope it is people that are going to start to enjoy fantasy football, that they're like, this sounds like it could be fun. So for all you people in Ireland, for fuck's sake, keep listening.
And if you all are new to fantasy football, after the draft, after we do all the analytics part, we will be hosting at least one episode, which is Fantasy Football for Dummies. So if you don't know anything about football, don't know anything about fantasy football, we will make an episode specifically for you so that you can get your feet on the ground.
And as far as content for that, Shane, I will be starting to work on that to put an article together for that. So I am very certain that we will have that article posted on our website before we even have the episode on it, just so people can start looking at it ahead of time. And, and that's something that can be helpful year after year. We don't have to revisit it every year. That's something that could be in our, in our banks,
our repertoire.
Yeah, that people can go to at any time and get that information on it, because there are so many new people to fantasy football that, maybe it's friends have been doing it, or something that people at work are doing it, and they want to be, have something to do with work with other people, that, hey, this sounds like it'd be fun. Or it could be a girlfriend of a guy who's been doing fantasy, and she wants to get in there just to show him that she's the shit.
Or vice versa. There could be the girlfriend following the girlfriend.
This is true too.
But we notice that there's a lot of content out there, and if you are brand new to fantasy football and you try listening to them, you don't know what any of those numbers mean at all. There's so much different phrases that we all use that if you don't know anything about football in general, you have no idea what this information is. So it's in one ear, out the other. So we're going to kind of dumb it down for y'all. Hopefully you find that of value.
I think that'll be useful. And again, I do know some guys personally that are looking to get this information because they hear it through friends and workspace and don't know what people are talking about, and they feel, they say, well, I feel stupid for not knowing these things. You were not informed on these things, so we're going to try to help inform you. So don't forget, it is 420, so please enjoy responsibly.
Also, if you do like our episode or any of our content, please feel free to subscribe. It helps with our algorithm so people can receive our advice without you telling your league mates where you're getting this information from.
No, please do tell them.
But we know you won't. So we will start today off with Jamar Chase. Now, he is the number 1 census wide receiver, rookie-wise, right now. He was a sophomore, or is a sophomore, out of LSU. 6 feet tall, 201 pounds. He ran an impressive 4.38 at the combine. Unfortunately, he did sit out all of 2020 to focus on the 2021 draft. And that's really in quotation marks because he probably did that to save his draft value because he had Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the team. He had Justin Jefferson on the team, and he also had Joe Burrow on the team. All of them last year hit the NFL, which was going to leave him all by himself, which, his numbers are most likely going to go down, being that he was the main guy left on the team.
Oh yeah, I mean, if he was on that team last year and you were any defensive coordinator for any team in the SEC, what is going to be your main objective? It would have been stop Chase.
Yeah.
Let's double him. I mean, it would have been ridiculous if he would have had horrible numbers. Now we're just wondering, is he still going to have what it takes to be a wide receiver after missing a year? But those questions are going to be few and far between compared to, oh, he had a horrible year.
Yeah, but we can just go off his talent, though. I mean, a lot of players in college don't break out into their junior year. So if somebody does break out freshman or sophomore year, that is called an early breakout age, which normally tends to mean that they will be more talented than the guys around them if they break out earlier.
Well, look at these numbers from 2019. 84 receptions, 1,780 yards with 20 touchdowns. Are you freaking kidding me?
That's his sophomore year.
Yes, when his body isn't even mature yet.
Yeah. So he's averaging 21.2 yards per catch, which is ungodly, and 127.1 yards per game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive. That's just really, really impressive. But, like we said, he had Joe Burrow. He had Justin Jefferson on the other side. Maybe they're drawing attention away from him. They also had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was also a receiver in the backfield.
He might have Joe Burrows again this year.
He might.
In all seriousness, don't you think that Joe Burrow is in the ear of
oh, yeah.
going, hey, get my boy.
Yeah. It's like, I got experience with this guy. He gave up the team 20 touchdowns and ridiculous almost 1,800 passing yards. That's crazy. Those are unreal numbers.
It is, yeah. And he he can play in big games.
Yeah.
They won the national championship with them, the two of them. So yeah.
So let's compare him with Justin Jefferson's stats on the same year, his sophomore year.
Okay.
Justin Jefferson had 111 catches, so about almost 30 more
30
catches.
more. Yeah, 30 more.
But he only had 1,540 yards and 18 touchdowns. So he was averaging 13.9 yards per catch, 102.7 yards per game. So Chase outproduced him in yards, touchdowns, yards per catch, and total yards per game while having less catches, which typically means that he's a more dynamic receiver, which we all saw Justin Jefferson last year. He tore up the league. And he was quiet the first, 2-3 weeks, and then he just tore it up, and he was averaging over 100 yards every game still.
So once again, we're going to go back to this and say it once again. Coming this year, if you draft Chase, and in the first two games he doesn't do squat, do not drop him. It does take a few games. I mean, look at Jefferson, that record-setting rookie year. It took him 3 games to get going. So do not be patient with him because he is going to be he's going to be a beast.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he had a better year than Justin Jefferson while being younger. So, and another difference between them is that with Justin Jefferson, we saw an incline in production from his freshman year to his junior year. It was a nice, steady incline production. While Chase, we saw a huge jump from his freshman year to his sophomore year, like dramatic. Like he did not have that much production in his freshman year, and then his sophomore year, just to put up those numbers was just crazy. So it just means like it's a really small sample size.
Yeah, Shane, his freshman year, he only had 313 yards receiving and 3 TDs.
Yeah,
and then he goes to the 1,780 yards and 20 TDs. That's just a little bit of a jump.
It's enormous. So we just need to see what can he do without a Justin Jefferson alongside him. Or does he get drafted to a team that already has a Justin Jefferson, like the Vikings? And one thing that Jamar Chase did have, of course, he had Joe Burrow throwing him the ball all season, which cannot hurt.
No, not at all.
Just watching him on tape, I mean, it's clear that he's blazingly fast. He's able to break away from defenders with either his cuts or his impressive leaping ability. His size and the way he plays, I don't know about you, but it kind of reminds me of Antonio Brown. Like nothing too fancy, but he's always like able to get the ball. He's always finding ways to get open when it's a one-on-one contested catch. Like he more than often beats the defender.
That's the one thing I was going to say, that even though it's not he's not extremely strong, it's not like he's a beast that way. But when it comes to one on one, he will outmuscle the other guy for the ball somehow.
Mm-hmm. And I think he'll be really, really dangerous if he plays in the slot. Just give him the open field, and he can do a lot of damage there.
All right, let's spin the wheel. Who did we land on, Shane?
Jalen Waddle.
Speaking of fast.
Yeah, this is one of our favorite wide receivers. So a junior coming out of Alabama. Now, he was last listed at 5'10", 182 pounds, which is, not the greatest size. He did sit out of his pro day due to his ankle injury from 2020. But even without those numbers, one thing that we do know is that he has blazing speed. And teams are comparing his speed and big play threat as to Tyreek Hill. He has the ability to score on any given catch, just like Tyreek Hill. His route running ability could be better, but if you look at Hill's route running ability, it was also unpolished when he entered the NFL. In 2020, he technically played 6 games. However,
Yes.
one game was which he was injured in the opening kickoff, and the other games when he came back from his injury and he was not 100% healthy. So if we take out those 2 games and just count the 4 that he played when he was fully healthy, here are his numbers. 8 catches, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. 5 catches, 142 yards, 1 touchdown. 6 catches, 120 yards. 6 catches, 161 yards, 1 touchdown.
For you mathematically challenged like myself that have to bring out the calculator, that comes out to 21.11 yard per reception. That's big.
Yeah, which led the SEC.
Yes. The SEC, isn't that the AAA version of the NFL?
Yeah, I guess so. He did benefit from having NFL caliber quarterbacks in Tua and Mac Jones in his college career. But I mean, normally when you have a player with that kind of speed, they are, a high ceiling, extremely low floor talent, right? They could hit if their speed, gets them that touchdown, gets them, over 100 yards. But if they don't normally have the talent to do anything with it. But in those 4 games, I mean, he had at least 5 catches, at least 120 yards. And in those 4 games, he scored 4 touchdowns. That's extremely consistent, which is kind of unheard of for someone with that kind of speed.
Some people are saying that he is not a polished receiver yet. Tyreek Hill wasn't a polished receiver when he came to the league either. So they did use him in gadget plays and things like that to gain his confidence. And then he learned how to be a polished receiver. So I think we're looking at the same type of position we're going to be in with Waddle, where right away he's going to be used on, sweeps and the little dump offs as they're coming in front of the quarterback and things of that nature, more so than the polished receiving, but still dangerous.
That's funny that you said that, because watching him on film, I thought the exact opposite, that the biggest difference between Waddle and Hill is that because Hill was mainly used as like a utility wide receiver or a running back and not fully as a wide receiver, like a wide out.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Waddle has been. I actually thought he looked more polished than Hill as a wide receiver. So in my opinion, I was thinking he was gonna have a faster start than what Tyreek did.
Let me rephrase that a little bit then. He's not as polished as some of the other receivers in this group that we're talking about, or the group that's coming out. And yes, I'll give you that. I think you're right on that. That he was more polished than Hill was, but he's not considered a polished receiver like some of those other ones that are in the draft.
Yeah. But he's clearly the fastest player on the field. He can take it to the house on like any cross route,
Any.
any. And his knowledge, his body awareness knowledge is pretty high. Like he can catch that sideline catch with just his tippy toes, within bounds.
Yep.
That beautiful catch that always makes on the ESPN's like top 10 plays. He's got that ability. So that's intelligence. That's football intelligence.
And to be honest with you guys, Shane and I didn't agree with everybody on this list today as far as where we thought they would be. We wanted to talk these specific ones, but we were both very high on this guy. This is the one guy that he was basically number one in both of our books for this year. That we think that as far as fantasy relevant, fantasy relevant and relevant to the football team are two different things. We're talking about the wide receiver that we think we can get the most fantasy points out of.
Yeah. I mean, he's just one of those guys that the upside is so high that you can't really guess at what kind of numbers you can put up,
I agree with you.
Does that make sense? Like you can't, like if I said he'll have 3 games over 200 receiving yards, you'd be like, okay.
Yeah. But again, we'll know more after the draft or which team he goes to. Then we'll know more of how he can be used, right? How he will be used, how he can be used. Once their positions already filled in the wide receiver core. So we'll know more in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, ready?
Next on our list, it landed, on Devontae Smith, senior out of Alabama, listed, again, just like Waddle, last listed at 6'1", 170 pounds. So one of the lightest receivers. He also sat out of his pro day due to a surgically repaired finger that he dislocated. And as of right now, what I've heard is that his finger is still purple, so he's still dealing with that injury. So hopefully that will not go into the season. The only knock on Smith that I've, heard from other experts is his thin build.
Yeah, they definitely question if he's going to be durable enough in the NFL, without a doubt.
Yeah, or if he can take a hit.
Yeah.
But, besides that, team sources rave about him and that he's just a natural football player.
Yeah. Again, 117 receptions, 1,856 yards, and 23 touchdowns in a major conference like that. That's quite an accomplishment. That's hello. That's just taking a season to the next level.
Well, Smith's excellent speed and quickness turned him into an amazing receiver who can separate and has an incredible route running ability to get open for his quarterback. So Mark just said his 2020 stats. And then in 2019, he had 68 catches, 1,256 yards, and 14 touchdowns. That year, he put together a record-setting game of 11 catches, 274 yards, and 5 touchdowns against Ole Miss. Now, he did that without Waddle, because Waddle was a freshman that year, and he was pretty much on the bench. So would that be different with a Waddle on the field? Probably. Smith led Alabama in receiving yards and touchdowns for 2 consecutive seasons, despite being surrounded by first-round talent at the positions, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, and Jalen Waddle. As a result, he was the first wide receiver to win the Heisman Trophy since Desmond Howard in 1991.
Pretty impressive.
That's crazy. It always goes to, almost always a quarterback. If not, it's a running back.
Yeah, he, think about this, in 2020, 143 yards per game in receiving yards. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I just worry about him getting hurt, him not being able to physically stack up with the rest of these guys in the NFL.
Well, how about this? I don't have Justin Jefferson's numbers with me right now, but watch him on field. Justin Jefferson is a pretty skinny guy, isn't he?
But guess what? He's 30 pounds heavier than this dude.
Oh,
30. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you looked them out on the field, if you watch their tape, they look very similar, right?
yeah,
They really do. They look very, very similar. But that's 30 extra pounds that Jefferson's carrying compared to Smith. That's a lot.
yeah,
And that, and in all seriousness, that alone might be the reason I stay away from him, from drafting him. To be honest with you, I I don't want to waste, especially if like in a dynasty league or a keeper league. I don't know if I want to waste a draft pick on someone and I truly do think he's not gonna be able to hold up. So I don't think myself that's going to be a no go for me. I think.
yeah. That's like me going out there on the football field playing wide receiver. Take a few hits from a safety, and I'm like, "Ow!" This doesn't feel good on my brittle bones.
Hey Shane, do you
Yeah.
even weigh 170 pounds with a 25-pound weighted blanket on you?
Well, I'm about like 165, so I'm about like five
Ooh,
pounds lighter
ooh.
than him.
So in other words, the pandemic has been good for your weight.
Oh yeah. One thing that we can't say about Devontae Smith is that he's a great route runner. He's very difficult to cover, and he always seems to get behind the defense, which is very impressive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So, I mean, he can do those things to avoid getting hit.
and like I said, we don't have a 40 time for him. But if you were looking at it, and from what they said, estimated, it's going to be like a 4.3. I mean, sorry, about a 4.4. So it's it's not blazing, but it's damn fast.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, he has enough to break it to the house. I mean, he's not like Waddle.
Yeah. Well, let's go. Let's spin the wheel again.
Okay.
Unless you had something else to say about Smith.
No, that was
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And it stops on Rondale Moore. Now, we just talked a little bit before this episode. I told you I really like Rondale Moore, and let's just talk about it first, and then I'll get into why I like him.
Okay.
So, junior coming out of Purdue, he's only 5'9", but does weigh 180 pounds, and he also ran a 4.29,
Blazing fast.
incredibly fast. So we cannot compare that to Waddle at all because he didn't run. But what we can compare that to is Tyreek Hill, who ran exact same speed on his 40, which is crazy that no one is talking about this guy enough.
Well, and I think no one's talking about him because they really look his last 2 years. In 2019, he got hurt and only played 4 games. Then last year, with the Big Ten starting behind everybody else, he only played 3 games, and then he opted out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really not a lot of tape to look at him from the last 2 years.
No, but you can watch his freshman year.
And can we just say, holy shit?
Yeah. Like, again, like if players are breaking out with these amazing numbers in their freshman year, that those are guys you need to like keep your eye on. So in 2018, he had 114 catches, 1,258 yards, and 12 touchdowns
97 yards a game.
as a freshman, right out of high school.
Well, I got a question for you also. Who is
Mhm.
Purdue's quarterback?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not
Yeah.
Joe Burrow throwing to him,
No.
and he's putting up those kind of numbers as a freshman.
Mm-hmm. So he has elite speed and amazing skills after the catch. And he should be playing in the slot based on his size. But watching him on tape, I instantly thought of Steve Smith, from former wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers. He's undersized, he's quick, but one thing that he does to make up with all that, because they don't have the best leaping ability because they're shorter than everybody else, is that this guy has got power. He is strong. So defense sees him, they're like, oh, I'm going to flatten this little guy, and it's like, no, he's going to flatten you. That's what I loved about Steve Smith, is that he was just so gritty of a player, and like he's like a little Mighty Mouse, you know, like he had to dish out as much damage to you as you were planning on dishing out to him.
Well, I know that's why you liked him. It's one of those guys that will get punched in the jaw and then punch someone else in the eye. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, he'll smile as he wipes the blood off his face and
Yeah.
then pummel you.
Yeah, exactly. He will fight for every ball. Absolutely, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is another one of those guys that you can see him being used as the gimmick plays, and the plays that Tyreek Hill's made famous, shall we say. You can see him being used that way. Where he gets drafted, do they need a slot receiver or not? What do they need? What is the scheme they're going to do for him? Don't know, but you can't teach speed
No.
and athletic ability. You can't teach it, and this kid has it.
Yeah, he's very dangerous after the catch, and he's very hard to tackle.
So, and this is a guy that, I mean, what round realistically do you think, if you were to draft him, what round do you think realistically you could draft him?
In fantasy football?
Yeah, in fantasy football. Because I think realistically in the NFL, he's going to go like in the 4th round.
Depends on who
Fourth, maybe
drafts
5th
him,
round.
but I'd say like 8th or 9th round probably.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that 8th round myself. And by then, you've already got yourself 2, probably maybe 3 wide receivers already that you could take a chance on. This is one of those kids you take a chance on that you hope then come the 5th, 6th game of the season, all of a sudden now they've caught on to the system and are able to, and they find a way to work his speed in. Because it's not going to happen right away. It's not going to be game one where they know how to use his speed or use his athletic ability.
Yeah, but if he's anything like Smith, I mean, he had such a long career of just being a tough, quick guy.
A pest.
So you should think about that if you're in Dynasty.
Yes, definitely.
That he has the build to last for a good while.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's not real slight. He's not 170 pounds slight. All right, so we're going to continue and we're spin the wheel once again. I'll put a little more. I'm going to do it like, what they do on Wheel of Fortune, where they're trying to hit the $10,000 little line, and they're just going to nice and just feather it in a little bit.
Big money, big money, big money.
No
We
whammies.
No whammy, no whammy. Oh, that's really showing your age there.
Oh, they got they
did remake it.
They remade it with Elizabeth Banks. Come on now.
They did. But I am old enough to watch the original. Landed on wide receiver Rashad Bateman. Bateman is a junior out of Minnesota. Not a big school. 6 feet, 190 pounds. He ran a 4.39. Also pretty quick. He's also from the Big Ten, so their 2020 season should not count because they barely played. But in 2019, when he was just a sophomore, he did have 60 catches for 1,219 yards and 11 touchdowns.
Let me give the calculator again for us challenged. So, okay, that comes out to 20.32 yards per reception.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
He's known as one of the most well-rounded wide receivers in the class and could pretty much run any route that you have in the playbook.
So what do you think when I see him? I'm thinking of a Bears receiver, Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood.
Do you really?
I do. Just because of his body control that he has. He has fantastic body control on the sides. That's when I see that. That's what I see. I see him. If you watched any of his tape, I mean, he was. Think about Allen Robinson. How great is he on the sidelines, right?
Yeah.
That's what I see this kid doing. That's the same thing I see. He's just got the great hands, the feet just getting in bounds, or going up and getting the ball away from 2 other players. That's what I see with this kid.
I mean, he's not one of my favorites. I just noticed that he's just a really good wide receiver, and nothing really stood out as glaringly amazing or anything like as a weakness. Like whatever team that drafts him is just going to get a solid wide receiver. I don't think he'll ever put up, wide receiver one numbers.
Yeah, and that's the thing is he was just solid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but I will take on my fantasy team a consistent, solid receiver where I know I'm getting points from him every single week. And he's not going to have that game where he disappears. That's the type of receiver I would love to have. Just someone who is, there's nothing wrong with getting a guy in the 9th round, 10th round, that's 11th round, whatever, that's just going to be solid. Not blow you away with anything, but all of a sudden you look at the end of the game, you're like, oh, damn, he put some numbers up.
I could be wrong on Bateman just because, he only played up until his sophomore year. Like we said earlier, that
Yeah.
they tend to break out in their junior year. So he still has room to grow. So
Yeah, the only breakout these receivers had in the Big Ten their junior year was acne. That's it. Nothing else.
was what? Acne?
Yeah, that's it.
I was like, who's this guy? Who's Acne?
Okay, here's my I predict. I predict,
Uh-oh.
yes, that if the Bears do not have a chance come the 10th pick, that let's say there are no quarterbacks left. All the quarterbacks, the top 5 quarterbacks we're all thinking of the coming out of the draft are all gone by the 10th pick. They will then wait down to the what pick do they have? It's the 18th,
The 20th.
20th. Okay, the 20th pick, and this is who they will pick up because they are going to lose Robinson the next year, so they need that type of receiver. They want to replace him. This is the replacement. This is his mini-me. Okay, but I do believe that if, say, a Mac Jones or a Trey Lance is available at that 10th pick, I believe the Bears will make heaven and earth move where they lose all their draft picks for the next couple of years to move up to get one of those guys.
I heard a rumor that the Dolphins.
I heard a rumor.
The Dolphins were willing to trade up or down. Yeah, they have the number 6 pick.
They're willing to trade down because they really believe in Tua.
Yeah, and they have a ridiculous amount of draft picks already.
Yeah.
And I could see the Bears trading for their number 6 pick so they can grab their quarterback of the future. I could see it. If they do make it happen, they'll do a horrible job with the trade. And like you said, trade all of our future draft picks for the quarterback that nobody wanted.
Hey, Shane, guess what?
Yeah. Huh.
I don't care anymore. I'm a Viking fan now.
You shouldn't say that, Mark. I think most of our fans are from Chicago at the moment. Chicago and Ireland.
Chicago, there you go. No, funny thing is today, I went and played golf this morning with a friend, and we're sitting there talking, and what did he say? He goes, you know what? As soon as they made that trade for Andy Dalton, I no longer was a Bear fan. I became a Minnesota Vikings fan. I'm like, oh, you too? So I think there's a lot of people out there like that.
Maybe. You guys are called traitors and backstabbers.
Some people call me an asshole.
Oh, that too. But that's your face. We say that behind your back.
No. They say it to my face. Oh. They say it to my face.
That might just be the random homeless guy you see on your way to work.
Oh, he definitely calls me that.
You ready to spin the wheel?
Who do we end up on?
We got Kadarius Toney.
And I know you're out there going, what?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I did not know about this guy. And Mark said, we're putting him on our show. So I was like, all right, let me do some work on it. This is what I found out about him. Kadarius Toney, a.k.a. Tony TNT, is
TNT.
Yeah, if you got a nickname TNT in football, that means you're explosive. So he's a senior coming out of Florida. He's 6 foot, 193 pounds. He ran a 4.41. He is a dynamic route runner. He can cut on a dime and easily separate from defenders. He breaks tackles. He was used as a slot receiver and a running back during his freshman through his junior year. Then became a true wideout during his senior year, which then he had 70 catches, 984 yards, 10 touchdowns. I think based off of those numbers is why he's not being talked about. But if you don't look at that and just watch him on tape, you just see that he's so explosive, and they're saying that he's the shiftiest wide receiver in this class because he's so hard to tackle. And he could be used in motion, which is something that Kansas City likes to do on offense. And if they draft him, because he's like a sleeper for us right now. If they draft him, then one of the best offenses in the league is just going to be that much better.
Well, think about this. There was talk. He was actually considering coming out into the NFL draft after his sophomore season as a running back. That is seriously where he was being suggested about coming out as and being drafted that way. Okay, so here he was, his sophomore year, thinking about coming out in the draft, being told to come out in the draft to declare yourself, as a running back. Teams can use you as a running back, and he decides, you know what, I'm going to come back another year, one more year. He comes back and gets hurt. He was hurt most of that his junior year. He was hurt off and on. Not great numbers. He says, you know what, I got to come back again one more year. And then he comes out, and what he did, like you said, is not huge on paper per se, okay? I mean, it was 14 yards per catch, 10 TDs, 90 yards a game in reception yards. But the one thing that he does, and what shows up on tape, is he breaks tackle. He was 6th in the country in broken tackles. That's pretty darn good. And then when we were talking about him, because what you guys don't, this is how Shane and I do this. We'll get together the week before and say, okay, who do you, like, maybe on Friday, who do you want to talk about on Monday? Who's the players you want to talk about? And when I gave him this, you should have seen the text message I got back on it. I mean, it was priceless. But then I sent him some stats. I said, okay, now watch some tape. It took about a half an hour, and I got a text message back from Shane talking about he stops on the dime. He just makes people miss. His route running is incredible. I'm like, I know. And if anybody my age remembers the Stretch Armstrong doll, as a kid growing up, where you can pull his legs this way, pull his legs that way, this is this dude. I mean, what he can do with his body. His body is all over the place, and I swear he must have not an ACL and MCL. He's got a CL cell and that cell and that. It's crazy what he does when it comes to it is.
I could see why he was running back. Like, his agility just reminds me of like really, really shifty running backs. Like, I'm talking about like the LaShawn McCoys. He just reminds me of really shifty running backs. He was just really fun to watch. You told me the name. I was like, huh? Never heard of this guy. Are you sure? And you're just like, just watch the tape. I watched the tape, and I was like, how is no one talking about this guy? He's electric. He's fun to watch. And those are players that I like on my team, are the ones that are really fun to watch, because not only do you have the bragging rights, then other people see that and like, ooh, I want that guy. And now you got some trade bait.
Well, and I see him definitely being used as a slot receiver. You get him in the middle of the field, leading him with the ball and let his legs take over from there, his running back ability take off in the middle of the field. Oh, he can make some dudes miss.
Yeah. So just pay attention and see where this guy gets drafted. And if no one is still talking about it, you can probably, he's one of those guys you can get him at the end of your draft. And he could be a game changer for your team. He could be one of those league winners. Or if you play in keeper, you get him in one of the last draft picks, and then next year you have him that same value. That's awesome.
All right. So I heard a rumor that at number 12, if the Eagles, okay, this is what they're really looking for. This is what they think they need, is a slot receiver. And that they got last year with Rieger, yeah, got the outside speed, that they want a playmaker in the slot. That if it gets to number 12 and Chase is gone, which he will be, but Chase or I think it was the other one they were looking at as possibly Waddle. If those two guys are gone before the 12th pick, that they would then be trading down and selecting this dude at the end of the first round.
I'd be surprised if he drafts him in the first round.
I'm just saying that's what the rumor is for the Eagles. What they love this guy, and they would take the chance of going backwards in the draft, getting some more draft picks out of it, and then picking a guy that they really want anyway in the late first round. Anyway, that's just a rumor I heard. So we can say he's going to be a sleeper on that, but if that does happen, every fantasy football dude in the world's going to be going, well, why'd they do that? Who is this good dude? Let me look into this guy, and they'll start looking into him. And then all the things we've said on this show won't mean nothing because everybody's going to know about him.
Yeah. I mean, I can't see that happening because it just seems like it's such a stretch to draft him that early, where they could just draft with, the best player at at whatever position, and then the second round pick up Tony. Just because, like we said, like no one's heard of this guy. I'm sure NFL teams have heard of him, but there's so many other players ahead of him on everyone's draft board.
Well, and I do believe he will be selected in the first 2 rounds. Somewhere in the first 2 rounds, I think he'll be selected. That's just me. I'll be willing to bet a steak dinner with you on that too.
Ooh, I like steak.
Yeah, most definitely.
That is all we have time for today on this episode. After the draft, the actual NFL draft, we will be reevaluating all the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends based on when and where they were drafted. Next week, we'll take a dive into, I was actually thinking about doing quarterbacks and tight ends in one, but as I started to get into about the tight ends, I think there's actually 3 guys that I would want to talk about besides, obviously, Kyle Pitts. So that might be a bonus episode. We might tie them together in one longer episode.
But the NFL draft is the following Thursday, isn't it?
Yeah, so we want to get it in before the draft.
I think we could be less winded and do the quarterbacks and maybe 3 tight ends.
We could probably do that. We'll see.
We'll see.
We tend to ramble.
Yeah, and then when we have when the draft comes around, we'll come back and we'll do where we think, considering where people landed, what their usage is actually going to, and also then how's that going to affect current wide receivers, running backs on teams that they're going to. Is it going to affect them? So yeah, we'll delve into that. We'll start doing some mock drafts after that again, and have our celebrity listener.
Oh yes, we still had to bring her in for an interview.
Yep.
And we'll also be doing the fantasy football for dummies. So we got a few things lined up for the future. If you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to contact us via Twitter @theprosFF. You can also see all of our episodes, show notes, and content at our website at thefantasyfootballpros.com. Like I said, that's all we have for you today, and we will see you all next week.
See ya.
Bye.